Welcome to another episode of Artist Spotlight, the podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Stringer. As always, the podcast brought to you by your friends at the Maryland Photography Alliance, where you can check out all things photography. If you go to mdphotoalliance.org, chances are if you go and take a look, come back a week or 10 days later, there's going to be new information about contests and skills and all sorts of photography tips that make the hobby and the passion and the work that we all do that much more enjoyable and improves your skills. Well, this episode, we are very fortunate to have Los Angeles-based photographer Amanda Peixoto Elkins on the program, and she is a celebrity photographer. She is a portrait photographer, and one of the things that is so incredibly impressive to me, at least, is that her work seems so approachable. It just looks very natural, and I think it shows her subjects in really the most flattering light that's imaginable, both literally the light and just from a personality perspective. So with that, Amanda, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so sweet.
Well, I tell you, I saw your work on your Instagram, and I saw you photographing this model who, just looked so comfortable in front of the camera. And I kind of looked through it. And then I checked out one of your YouTube videos, and I thought, this model looks very similar. And I realized that's the same model. And then I realized the model is your daughter.
Yes, that's my baby. Ah, it's so crazy to see her, that grown up in front of the camera because she's, they will always be your babies, right? She is almost off on her own. We found her the most amazing manager, and so she is kind of planning out her own career. But she and I have been photographing together since she was like 6 months old, and that's basically how my whole entire career came to be because the whole thing started with me. I had a blog that was dedicated to my family in Brazil that my husband put together for me. And I would post pictures of my children and basically just for my family to just keep up with, like, oh, Bella got a tooth. Oh, Bella's doing this. Oh, Ethan's doing this, things like that. So then I started photographing her. I've always loved photography, coming from the modeling world, and I always had somewhat of a pretty decent eye for photography. So when I had Bella, my husband gifted me a camera, a professional camera, and it was basically so I could get into even more perfect photos, I guess, of my babies. And it just one thing linked to another. And this on this blog, I had pictures of Isabelle, and this hair clip company of babies contacted me saying how they loved her pictures and they loved the photos, and they would love to be in touch with the photographer and find out who the model was and stuff like that. I'm like, this is so bizarre, but okay. I started working with them, photographing Isabelle for their catalogs and things like that. And then she started with an agency when she was very little. So I did some of the photos, and she worked with other photographers as well. But yeah, she's almost off. She wants to be in Europe very soon. And but photographing her is always such an amazing experience because it's just, she has that. It's not everybody, and I've worked with so many people, but she has that it thing that's so specific for, like, she understands the light, she knows her body so well, and it's like just put her in front of the camera and you can put a second on her and she's making it the most beautiful thing in the world. So
Well, the reason I bring your daughter up, aside from her being a fantastic up and coming model, is, and you and I kind of talked about this because I have a daughter as well, and having your child feel comfortable in front of the camera
yes,
is not always easy. So
yes.
with you making your daughter so comfortable, when you meet a client for the first
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know them at all. They've seen your work, but you haven't
Mm-hmm.
met before. How is it that you sort of get over and get through those first moments of discomfort to get to a place of comfort so you can really bring out the very best in them?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm a very warm and approachable person, I want to say. I arrive and I'm like hugs. So I always tell everybody, and I know it's not a very American thing, but like I grew up with that. So usually that's the first thing I say. Oh, I love hugs. And most people were usually like, oh, me too. So that already kind of gives me a good opening. And then I love coming early to set when I'm shooting and having a full on conversation with them, like getting to know them on a personal level while they're getting their hair and makeup done. So we can kind of get to know each other a little bit better so that by the time we go from, hair, makeup to putting on outfits and starting to shoot, I kind of get a feeling of their personality a little bit. And then when we start shooting, it seems a little bit more organic. And also, like, usually the beginning, I want to say the first look, I choose the least favorite because it's usually that one look that's like, they're still warming up to me, they're still getting learning how I shoot and how I direct and that kind of stuff. But like by the time we start shooting second look and we have been talking for a while, got to know each other a little bit. I talk about my children a lot, specifically if it's like older people that also have children. There's always that exchange of like, oh yeah, my kid's doing this or my kid's doing that. Oh yeah, we talk about teenage things. That was what was the biggest portion of my career was been dealing with everyday things, and then it just flows.
Yeah, now you shoot everything from, magazine covers or photos for articles in magazines to headshots, and it's really quite a gamut of images and uses of that imagery. So, when you're talking to someone and they may not know you or they may not know your work, there's
Mm-hmm.
the classic expression of, what's your elevator pitch? So when someone says, "Oh, hey Amanda, what is it that you do?" How do you describe what you do to a person, who's just not familiar with you?
Oh gosh, it's really hard to explain what you do. It almost takes like a second person
Mhm.
to kind of come to you and say, "Oh, I get what you do." But to explain it better, I do mostly portraits, lifestyle. That's kind of my jam. Um, and I try to stay within that. I do some editorial from time to time. I did commercial before when Bella was little, mostly children's stuff, clothing, hair clips and stuff, but like not a whole lot of that. I work with actors, I work with models. I don't want to say I do a whole lot of headshots. I usually get some really great portraits, and that's usually what they use for their IMDb pages.
Mhm.
But that covers, I've done a few. That's that's it.
Now, do you find that when you shoot with someone, and let's say they're early on in their career, as their career evolves, does that actor or actress have some kind of almost say in who they work with at times? Can they say, "I really love working with Amanda. Here's the images that we shot a year ago, 6 months ago," or is it really exclusively a studio or a client who kind of directs where that actor or actress goes for additional photography?
I do a lot of usually I work with the reps come to me, or I have had actors come to me directly, and some of them I have worked with since they were first starting in their careers. I've been shooting actors for about, I don't know, 15, 16 years now. And they usually come with me and they just say, I just need some new shots. And then I ask for some sort of guidance. So usually they come to me with like a storyboard of some sort that we can kind of have an idea of what it is that we're going to shoot. They have the reps that I work with. They have a very good idea of what it is that I do. So I don't usually get somebody that come to me and they want to do something completely different. Over the years, I have decided that I'm going to strictly work with natural light. I feel that there's so many photographers out there that, we should each just stick to what we do best. And I feel that what I do best is natural light, either in, if we're working at a natural light studio, if we're working outdoors, bringing some outside elements into the photos. And my main focus is to make sure that they feel very comfortable with what we're doing. And as long as we are creating some beautiful imagery and we have some sort of an idea of what we're doing with the storyboard, and we're following that very closely, it can be we can start inside the room and then go outside. And then, if their reps will go and look at the photos, or if they go through the images that we capture, and we're like, okay, well, I feel like we need to get a few more shots this way or that way, we'll do that as well. As an example, I did shoot last year with Alexandra Breckenridge. She's in Virgin River currently. And we started indoors. We did some really beautiful shots with her with this white shirt, sitting on the couch, which is some beautiful portraits in natural light. And then we did a couple more, getting closer to the door, and then just kind of slowly planning on going outside. And then towards the end, we're like, I feel like we need a little something more. And she had this really beautiful white dress and this sweatshirt. It was like a sweater that she wanted to put on top of it. I said, why don't we go and shoot right on the sand with that? I think they'll look really pretty. So we went outside, we did a few shots with her with the dress and then the sweater on top. And then we ended up like in the ocean, like just playing at the beach as she's walking around and moving around. And then by the time we got out of there, we're both soaking wet. But we got such a wide variety, and everybody was happy. Everybody got a little bit of what they wanted. Her reps got what they needed. She got what she needed, and I definitely got what I needed.
It's interesting. You were talking about your daughter and models in general when they have that certain it factor,
Mm-hmm.
and we've heard that term with actors, actresses,
Mm-hmm.
models, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
in my experience photographing models with clothing, I'm talking with them, and then I'm looking at them through the lens, and it could be an angle of their
Mm-hmm.
face or an angle of the body, the face, the clothes. It all kind of comes together. And when you click that shutter, you know that you've got the shot. You're just like, that is it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, it's interesting because, when and you this is your career. I've done this somewhat, but your job, at least part of it, is to create that situation where you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of in this groove, not because it happens accidentally, but because you've just worked with so many clients and you're so
Mm-hmm.
good at making them comfortable that, when you're in that collaborative moment, like you just
Mm-hmm.
described with her, where you're
Mm-hmm.
not as much directing her step by
Mm-hmm.
step as
Mm-hmm.
you're just coming up with a concept and then you're collaborating. When you're in
Yes.
that moment, when you're in it, do you feel like, oh, I am in that moment right now, and you just want to maximize every second of what's going on?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Some people just have that, like I was saying, that it, and then they come with, when they're in that collaborative, sorry, sometimes the Portuguese wants to come out. um, mindset that they're like, oh yeah, I'm here, let's do this. I've seen some of these really cool shots that you've done. I want to do something similar, you know, and they vibe with me, and like, everything is going really well. And then we have music playing, and then like everybody get along really well. And, hair and makeup, people are awesome. And, I usually have, it's really hard for me not to get along with somebody. So usually we have this really cool thing going on in the studio or wherever we're shooting. And we're there, we're shooting, and everybody's got an idea, and I'm very open to other people pitching in, because sometimes you're so focused on like making sure your settings are right and making sure that person's looking properly and the light's great and everything, that you're like blocking everything else that's going on. And I tend to do that quite a lot. And sometimes there's somebody else who's seen something. Oh, Amanda, I saw that there's a really cool fence right there and the light's just great. Can you maybe, come over here and take a look at it? I'm like, 100%, let's go. And sometimes it's like, let's take a break and let's grab a drink. Let's dance a little bit or something. Let's change. Let's, just kind of, when I notice that things are getting stiff, because it gets to that point that's like, okay, I feel like we shot so much. That's like, let's change things up and then get something else going on. But yeah, 100%.
I've had some of these moments where I almost feel like it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, for example, I'll have, like, let's say I have a female model and we're just
Uh-huh.
talking about the shoot and kind of what we're thinking about. And then they
Mm-hmm.
get into, whatever they're supposed to be wearing. And,
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking, they're just super soft spoken and like the girl
Mm-hmm.
next door. And then when they get in front of a lens, here, if they come this like sultry, completely different person, and then when you're done shooting, they're back to that kind of soft spoken, or the guy who's very soft spoken, he puts on whatever he's going to be putting on,
Mm-hmm.
and he seems like the most macho dude you've ever seen. You've experienced. You're nodding your head for those who obviously
Yes.
can't see you, but isn't that wild how
Yes.
sometimes people become somebody totally different?
Yes, my daughter's a huge and perfect example for that. She's this very like tomboyish, kind of really cool girl, and she's up for everything, and she's got this really big personality, and like, but she gets in front of the camera, and it's like, whoa, what did just happen? And every single person who's been in the room with her, who knows her and stuff, can definitely see it. We did a shoot in Greece together. We went on vacation, the two of us. So I gave my son a gift of a trip when he graduated high school. So I promised her I would do the same for her. And they each picked the countries that they wanted to go. And she was 100% set. She wanted to go to Italy and Greece. So that's what we did. So while in Greece, we did the shoot together. And I was so sick. I had COVID,
Oh,
and oh, I was so, so, so sick. I can't even believe it. I got out of bed for that. But we picked a couple outfits out of between her bag and her friend's bag that was with us. And we went outside and we just shot. I had my R6 with me and a 40 millimeter lens, which is all that I brought because I wanted to make my equipment as compact as possible for this trip because I was just tired of traveling with so much equipment, and I didn't want to make this as like a travel photography trip. So that's all I brought, and then I just took her out and was like, all right, let's get a couple of shots because it's such a beautiful place that we got to get a little bit in here. And I cannot tell you how many people pass by and were just mesmerized watching her. And then there's this one guy who was so funny. He was French, and I love their accent. And he was there just talking with us, and he would go, "Yes, yes, do that. Oh my God, she's amazing." And it was so adorable. But it's like, it's that kind of stuff. It's that personality. She gets that, and when she gets in front of the camera, and it's like, wow, amazing. It's incredible to photograph.
and is that one of the videos that's on your YouTube in Greece?
Yes, the one in
Okay.
Greece. Yes, yeah, you should watch that whole thing. It's funny. I left a little bit of what he was saying in the end. It was very sweet.
That actually leads me to one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and I think
Mm-hmm.
amateur photographers, especially who are listening, may not think in these terms. So there are moments during that video, while you're doing the shoot, where
Mm-hmm.
you're instead of avoiding shadows, you're
Uh-huh.
working with the shadows.
I
And,
love it.
she had, in some cases she had it almost looked like direct or semi-direct sun, and you had her lifting her hands to kind of
Mm-hmm.
block some of it strategically, and the
Mm-hmm.
use of light and shadow is well known in photography, but the way you're using it for portrait photography and fashion photography, maybe kind of talk about your philosophy of how to use light and shadow in those situations.
Oh, philosophy. You lost me there. I try to keep everything as organic as possible, and sometimes it's almost like there's another being that comes inside me and takes over. Um, I just love natural light. I talk about it all the time. If you follow me on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, that's all I talk about because I'm just obsessed with it. There's just so much you can do with it. I love using shadows to kind of create drama. And that's kind of what I was trying to do with those photos for her, at least for some of the photos. I had no other equipment with me aside from my R6 and the 40 millimeter. And Isabelle is very easy to photograph because she not only she takes direction really well, she is very good at knowing her light and her body. So her positioning is it's always perfect. So I don't have to actually tell her a lot, but every now and then, I like to direct and like, put your hand, like you said, just put your hand up there and just kind of block the light a little bit. That way, you just creates a little bit of shadows within that light. And I just love mixing a wide variety of use of natural light within a shoot, either backlighting or anything that will create some drastic imagery. And when you're at a location like that, the sun was still up high. And I was working within the shadows of the buildings because I was right inside the village. And we were able to create some really cool, it kind of almost looks like a set and it looked like I had some sort of like all sorts of images and a bunch of people behind me setting up stuff, but it was just us. But yeah, sorry, did I went on a tangent here? Did I answer your
No,
question?
yes, you did. No, that's great. So one thing that I know people will wonder, and we kind of touched on it, but you mentioned that when your daughter was young, you really got
Mm-hmm.
into photographing her, and then that kind of
Mm-hmm.
led to your evolution as a photographer. But
Mm-hmm.
when you were a kid, did you come from a family that had a camera that took family pictures? How did you first even get introduced to photography?
So I'm a daddy's girl. I love my dad. He's the best. He had this camera. Actually, I own it. I have it somewhere. It was a little Panasonic 35 millimeter camera, and there's this really odd little flash on top that I remember since I was very little that he would always take it out and take pictures of us. And at this one time, I remember I was playing with him and my little sister, who's 5 years younger than me, in the bedroom. And I was about, I don't know, maybe 5. So she was just born. She was little, crawling. And he was taking photos of her, and I was just mesmerized. I'm like, oh my God, that is so cool. Like, the positioning and like, the way that he was shooting, with the light coming in this way. And I just remember specifically like looking at the photos after of like her positioning and like the way that the light was hitting. And I'm like 5, 6 years old at that point. And, I grew up with him constantly on vacation, taking pictures of us. But I think most of the love for the actual, like, to become a photographer came from modeling. I was always the very annoying model, constantly asking questions. I probably annoyed so many photographers. Well, so what are you doing now? What is that for? Can I see? Like, what I'm saying? And back then it was all
Sure.
film. So, he would kind of there's just one specific photographer. We became really good friends in the end. And he would always show some of the other images I had shot from the same setup. It's a very cool little setup. And he used to do this thing, which is to this day, actually, now that reminded me, he did drops on the eyes to make the eye bright. And that was a question that I had for him. I'm like, so what are you doing? And it was one of the things that he answered that he was like, oh, it just makes the eyes sparkle more. I was like, okay, interesting. Sorry, I totally lost my
Did
train of
did he
thought
ever
right
tell you
there.
what did he ever tell you what it was that he was putting in your eyes?
Just eye drops.
Okay.
He says it just I'm saying, like, sometimes when your eyes are irritated and stuff, it just kind of clears everything and it just makes it
Sure.
brighter
Oh
and
yeah.
shinier. I don't know why that thought came into my mind, yeah, but yeah, it came from photography. From sorry, the love for photography came from modeling for sure. I was always the very 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 annoying photographer model asking questions like, what did that what are you doing with that light, and why do we need to do this, and what camera is that, what lens is that, and they were always very very nice and telling me all the answering all my questions. And so yeah, I think that's where it came from.
And as time went on, did you have anyone you would consider to be a teacher or a mentor, or then or now, are there other photographers that you've, if not tried to emulate, that you've kind of looked at and found inspiring?
Hmm. Um, I I am self-taught from and the reason I decided to get into photography was, my husband and I, since the very beginning, we decided that we wanted to raise our children ourselves. So that meant I'd be staying home while he worked, so that, one of us would always be with the kids. But I always wanted to make sure my children had me not just as their mom, but their role model as well. So I wanted to do something. I didn't want to just be home and, so photography, that's where photography came. I knew I had a pretty decent eye for photography. And so I thought, why not combine the two? So I started hitting the blogs very, very heavily and trying to learn from different people. There was this photographer at the time, and I loved her because there was something about the eyes that she used to do, and there's always the eyes. I'm very obsessed with eyes.
Mm.
It is, it's almost like you can see somebody's soul through their eyes. So she did this thing with the eyes that it was just amazing. Her name was, or I think she's still a photographer to this day, Audrey Woolard.
Okay.
Audrey, hello. I know she loves photography podcasts, so she might be listening too. So, anyways, she used to do this amazing trick with the eyes, and I always was fascinated by it. So that's what I focused on. I bought my first 50 millimeter. Um, Back then, I had a 30D, Canon 30D, and that was it for me. I just started working with a 50 millimeter and trying to get the eyes as sharp as possible. And from then, now I want to say, I'm obsessed with Peggy Sirota. She's my go-to when I'm like, need inspiration or something. She's fantastic at her lifestyle type of work and her celebrity work. I just love her. There's Patrick de Marchelier, and I love him so, so much. Annie, Annie is Annie. Mario Testino, I also love him because he gets the Latin look, he gets the colors, he gets the people. It's just so beautiful to watch him work. And then I discovered this through my daughter. I discovered this Italian photographer. He is absolutely outstanding. His name is Alessio Albi. I don't know if I pronounced it
Okay.
correctly, but I love him. Love him. His work is beautiful. His Instagram is just so really nicely curated. He works mostly with models, and it's just beautiful, beautiful work.
When you look at photographers like that, and you look at people like Peter Lindbergh
Mm,
and his work,
hmm
I personally, I can look at the same image, and if I
hmm
see it in black and white and I see it
hmm
in color,
hmm
it's the same image. But for
hmm
me, I get something often completely different out of the black and white or the color image. I mean, do you shoot much or at all in black and white, or mostly color?
And I've said this so many times, and I get so many questions about it. I don't know why I'm not a huge fan of black and white photography. I think people who do black and white photography do a really beautiful job. And I love Peter Lindbergh and I love Patrick de Marchelier. His black and white photos are absolutely stunning. But I love color. I'm obsessed with color. I try to do everything with color. I think it's just, you get so much more warmth out of an
Mhm.
image. But from time to time, I think some images kind of almost beg you to turn them into black and white. So I do
Mhm.
from time to time, I shoot in color and then switch it off to black and white.
You mentioned when you were on the trip to Greece, you brought your 40 millimeter lens, and we
Pancake
will,
lens.
yeah, yeah, which are they're great because they're small by nature.
So easy. It's so skinny. I love it.
Yeah, it's so easy to carry. So
Yes.
one of the questions that we will get, it would be when you're shooting, let's say for a client, and
Hmm.
gear is not an issue, you've got plenty of time and ability to take it to a studio or set or wherever you may
Hmm.
be shooting. What is your kind of go-to setup when you're going to be shooting for lifestyle or that kind of thing? What kind of combination of lenses and bodies do you typically bring to a typical shoot? I know everything's different, but we all kind
Hmm.
of have our standard that we then
Hmm.
deviate from as needed.
I'm a Canon girl. I have been since the beginning, and I've been really thinking hard to switch to Leica because I'm also in love with it. But the price point is just crazy.
Mhm.
Um, but I also I'm a 50 millimeter fan, like to this day. Love it. It's usually at some point in my shoot, I will use the 50 millimeter. I love prime lenses, so I usually stick to prime lenses. I usually have in my camera bag a 35 millimeter, a 50 millimeter, and 85 millimeter, 70 to 200 from time to time, but usually I stick to those. What else? I do the R series from Canon is just such a fantastic job they did with those cameras. They just everything that they could put together in an equipment they did with those the R6, the R5. They're just phenomenal. So I also I'm sponsored by Tokina,
Mhm.
and I've been working with them since 2018. And so I usually start with the Tokina 1.4, the 50 millimeter 1.4 opera lens is just such a beautiful lens. It's a little heavier than I'd like, but it just makes up for it. And, the quality is just beautiful. So usually I want to say I start with an R6 or R5 and I put the 50 millimeter and then go from there.
Well, I will tell you that just to further pique your curiosity, that the Leica 75 f2 is a
Mhm.
fantastic portrait lens. F2
Yeah.
Summicron lens is really great. So I'll just put that I'll put that in your ear.
Thank you. Thank you for making me want something else. I started to kind of get into film. I'm not great at it, but I'm really trying to as, yes, I was self-taught. So I'm like, I already started with digital, but I've been doing some film the last few years, and I'm kind of acquiring a little bit of some film cameras that, like, vintage film cameras that I'm kind of obsessing over. I got a Bronica. I got this Bronica just recently, actually, no, last year, and I'm still kind of playing with it, but I'm loving that. So I'm like, do I hold off on, buying more expensive equipment? Because honestly, for me, like, I can take, unless I'm shooting for something that specifically asks, and I can always go out and rent what I need.
Of
Um,
course.
my camera does such a great job. I'm not shooting anything for like billboards or anything like that, that I will need
Right.
anything more than, what I have. And I love to work with that person one on one, trying to get as close as I possibly can. So I don't want to be stopping a lot in between to go switch a lens or
Sure.
what I'm saying. So like if I'm with the 50 millimeter and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna need a little bit more distance. Like while they're changing really fast, I'll just put on my 85 and go with that for as long as I possibly can until I have to switch again. But I usually put a lens in there and then it's going to stay for a while unless I really, really need to switch for something.
Yeah, I started to have like an 85 1.2 or 1.4 on a
Mm-hmm.
body, and then like a 50 on a body, and then maybe a 24 or a 28. And that way it wasn't a matter of lens change. It was just picking
Mm-hmm.
up that next camera and kind of
Mm-hmm.
minimizing, as you're saying, the
Mhm.
downtime. So, with you really focusing on the natural light, what frequency would you say you're using light modifiers to manage and
Never.
control that light? Never. So no
I
no
don't use any.
reflectors or anything.
Okay, so I shouldn't say never. But I want to
They say never, right?
rarely. Yes, rarely.
Okay.
Maybe I like the reflectors. I'm very picky about the reflectors, and I'm very bummed that I cannot find the ones that I love anymore.
Hmm.
It's very rare that I find them anymore. It's the zebra. It's the mix of the silver and the gold together. Have you
Hmm.
seen those? I
I have, yeah.
love those, and I can't find them anymore. It's for whatever reason I cannot find them anymore. I have a few of them that will last me a little bit, but sunscreen sometimes. But usually I try to keep it as organic as possible. So, like if I'm walking with somebody, let's say we're shooting on the street or something, I will try to find a light source bouncing out of something.
Hmm.
So like I want want that light to be reflecting off the cement or a wall or my shirt. Sometimes I wear white just to use myself as a bounce. Um,
Hmm.
Something like that versus, oh, hold on, I have to go and grab more equipment. Especially if we are on the roll, I don't want to stop that to go switch up anything. It's usually just me and the camera and the camera and my lens, and that's it.
Well, and that's probably one of the several reasons why people feel very comfortable. You're not showing
Mhm.
up with 8 people in tow, and I
No,
think that makes a big difference.
I think so. And some people are very good at that. They have their people do all the other things that usually it's me doing all the main things that, a whole bunch of people would be doing.
Sure.
So that photographer can only focus on the talent. But I don't know. I think might be a control problem. I just like to have control over every aspect of my images, and that's why I still haven't been able to let go of the editing. I
Okay.
should have had somebody edit my images for me by now so that I can just focus on shooting, but I still can't let that go either. So, I
Well,
think
I was going to say the psychology of that'll be my next podcast. is the psychology of photography.
yes, yes, we're very different people from one photographer to the other. You can get all sorts of yeah, we're very interesting.
So I have heard a Los Angeles-based photographer, Greg Gorman, say that many times, when he meets a person just in normal private life and they have a
Mhm.
conversation, within a matter of seconds, he already knows the way he would photograph that person in
Oh
terms
yeah.
of the angle of their face. So, that's like one of those occupational hazards where you can't not think photographically. How is that for you when someone says, "Oh, hi, Amanda, I'm so and so," and you shake their hand and you're already thinking, "I want you to turn just slightly to the left."
Yes, that is such a great question. Yes, 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 100% yes. Every single person that I meet, I am secretly in my mind going, "Oh my God, I would love to put you here or there, or turn you upside down, or put a black shirt on you or a red shirt on you. I think it will look so good with your skin tone, or something like that." But on another note, whenever I get a request to shoot somebody, the first thing that I do, I go watch something they've done. So I will start, watching their TV show or their movie or something like that, because I want to start looking at all their angles way before we get there. So I kind of already have an idea in my mind of what it is that I want to do with that person for our shots to get the best, out of our time.
Well, it's interesting because, when I interview people, a lot of times the photographers have been interviewed a number of times on podcasts or television, and they will lapse into the same stories they've told 20 other times. And so one of the things I do is I try to educate myself about them and kind of get them off of their standard, 3 stories, et cetera. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason I share that with you is when you see someone that you're going to photograph and you get some ideas of angles, or you see them photographed with certain
Mm-hmm.
angles, do you sometimes think, yeah, I'm going to get those shots. They work, but I want to find a different way to show them that hasn't been done before.
Yes. And that's one thing that we did with Avril Lavigne. I photographed Avril Lavigne back, oh God, it was at least 10 years ago
Hmm.
for a cover of Bello magazine. And Avril is a punk rock singer, and she's amazing at what she does, and she's beautiful and everything. But we switched everything about the narrative, and we dress her in Dior and Prada, and we made her all proper and the images are so beautiful. That was shot in studio. Um, I would have loved to have done natural light with her, but she had a very full day that day, and so by the time she got to us, it was nighttime. So we didn't have, any other option than do that. But I love those images, and I think, the whole entire world, like we got so many different, what's it called, different newscasts and people talking
Yeah,
about it
yeah.
because she looked
Exposure, essentially.
completely different than what she usually does. And everybody's saying how beautiful she looked, and the cover was amazing, and it's a whole different way to viewing that beautiful person that she's lovely, absolutely lovely, and we had the best time. But yeah, that's I absolutely believe so. Yeah.
When you photograph people, actors and actresses, kind of on the way up, and you've in
Mm-hmm.
their career, and then you've seen them
Mm-hmm.
achieve success, and
Mm-hmm.
how does that make you feel when there's someone that you worked with when they were kind of just getting started, and then they get that big break? Yeah, I imagine that you got to just take a little bit of you know joy, satisfaction, happiness for them that the work has paid off. How do you feel when you see them get that first big role on a series or whatever it is?
Oh, I'm so happy for them. A lot of them, like the big majority of them, I stay good friends with. We either talk on, social networks, or, email every now and then, or text every now and then, or whatever. And it's so amazing to watch them, become this, force of nature, because usually I work with a lot of young Hollywood. So the ones that are coming up, like up and coming, what they call.
Mhm.
And then I just watch them. They're starting a TV show, and that's why they're promoting. So they come to me and get some new shots for, like, different magazines or whatever, IMDb, and big variety of use for the images. But like, and then they turn around and they go from a small TV show on ABC or whatever, and then they go into like a big movie with um, Patrick Dempsey, or it's amazing. It's beautiful to watch their career take off, and knowing that one day we work together. I have a lot of images of people who I photographed that have, like, their signature and sweet messages, and I have a lot of Polaroids that I've taken with them, and it's just so crazy to go through them and see who they are now, and how their career developed, like Sasha Petersa, Hunter McGrady. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. Have you heard of Hunter McGrady?
I have not,
She's
but yeah, I have not.
she's incredible. She's
Okay.
she's a model. She's a plus size model. Beautiful, curvy, amazing. And I've known her since she was, I think we started photographing together. She was 15, I think.
Mm.
And she's married. She had two children, and she's been like graced the covers of many magazines, and Sports Illustrated is one of them. This is huge. um, and she's just taken the world by storm. It's like we did so many beautiful projects together. We did this photo shoot that we wanted to honor Marilyn Monroe, and we did a shoot where we transformed her into Marilyn Monroe, and the images are absolutely
Wow.
amazing. We have these black and white photos that I've taken, backlit, and I used the sunscreen on the back behind her to block the sun a little bit, and the images are absolutely incredible, and she looks just like her. It's crazy. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
very special.
Yeah, no doubt. So, in the world that we live in, of course, social media is gigantic. And my
Mm,
question would be two questions really. For you
mhm.
as a photographer, what has social media meant to your work, not only where it's shown, but also people hiring you, to work for them? And then, is it all good, or has there been some downside to social media in the photography world?
I am 100% not the best person to talk about this because I am not great at social network. I'm trying so hard, but I am not. I think the algorithm hates me. I try
You and
to
me
get
both.
Oh my gosh, it is so hard. My kids, I tried to get, my kids are 23 and 18 now. So from time to time, I'm like, okay, is this cringe? And they're like, yes, mom. Yes, mom. And then I forget that's like, I'm mom to them, right? So
Of
everything is
course.
cringe
Yes.
anyways.
Yep.
So, but like, some of their friends are like, oh, this is so cool. And I'm like, see, I'm talking about it. And I mean, I'm not completely, worthless in that perspective, but like, it's very hard. It's a completely new language for us that we're born before, the 2000s and before internet and social networks and stuff like that. It's like a whole new thing to learn, for them, like it's like breathing, right? They just know how to do things. I'm learning one thing at a time. It's taking me a little bit.
Yeah, it is, if you think of it as a language, they were born speaking that language.
Right. Correct. Yes. It's
Yeah.
it's very frustrating because it feels like whenever you learn a little something, they change the algorithm and everything, and then it's like it's a completely different thing.
So when you're not, working, shooting different actors, actresses, etc., what do you photograph for fun? Do you photograph just for fun, or when you put the camera down for work, are you just glad to put it down because you spend enough time with it?
Oh gosh, photography. I do a lot of landscape stuff. Photography is that kind of work is so much fun to me. I love taking little road trips here and there. California is so beautiful and there's so much to explore that sometimes I would just go away for the weekend. I used to just, be me and a friend, or I take my son. My husband's been with me a couple times, or we just, I had a friend. She used to live here. She moved to Australia now, but she used to live in Sacramento, and we'd meet different places. Like one time, she flew to Burbank. I picked her up. We went to Palm Springs, and then we did Joshua Tree together, and then we did Salton Sea and just kind of explore that area. And then we did another time we went to Yosemite together. And it's just so much fun to just, not think about anybody needing anything. It's just you and your creativity and, nature, which is amazing. I love being in nature. Or when I travel overseas, I love bringing my camera. I usually bring my 1740 or a 1635 millimeter with me, just so I can get, some wide spaces or, come close in if I need. But I love shooting wide when I do landscapes. So I usually there's this photo that I took in Vienna, Austria, when I went a few years back, that it's absolutely my favorite photo. If you ask me ever, like, what's your favorite photo you ever taken? That's my favorite photo I've ever taken because I love that photo. I'm a big fan of the movie Before Sunrise. There's Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight with Ethan Hawke.
Okay.
And I just think those movies are so beautifully done. And then all the movies are them, him and, gosh, I forget the name of the actress at the moment. But it's just basically him and her walking around a different city. The first one is in Vienna, and the second one is in Paris, and the third one is in Greece, if I'm not mistaken. And it's literally the camera is on their faces, and they're walking around town talking. It's so well done. It's like it sounds boring if you're trying to explain the movie to somebody, but it's just so well done. It's just the story is so beautiful. So there's a specific bridge that they cross in Vienna, and I had to get that shot. That was in my mind from the second I planned that trip. and I did it, and it was the most amazing thing. The light just seems like it was there for me that day. It just hit that bridge so perfectly, and the clouds in the background, and everything is amazing about it. So definitely love to do photography as a hobby as well, because I'm not definitely not a, you know, landscape photographer, but like I just like to try new things and then, you know, get my version of, you know, the shot.
You know, the question that a lot of amateur photographers have is, I'm trying to take my child who's a senior in high school, trying to take a
Mm-hmm.
portrait of them. How do I get them to relax? And how do I pose them? And how do I do this? And so this is almost like an advice column question. How would you describe for someone who enjoys photography, they want to get
Mm-hmm.
better at it? How would
Mm-hmm.
you describe the importance of and the thoughts behind composition?
That's tough. Well, if
I couldn't make
you,
it easy for you. Can't make it
yeah,
easy.
I know, I know. Composition is really, it's really tough, and I'm still not great at it. I'm pretty good, and I have a few rules that I follow, but then I like to break them a little bit. But I want to say, you know, use the three thirds, however you describe it. You know, just try to stay in the middle as much as possible. You know, try to get the eye within that first little
Ox
line.
almost.
Yeah, and you know, as sharp as possible. But you know, I usually when people ask me what's the best way to photograph, I don't even get like, if you're not a photographer, I try not to even get much into the details of, you know, like all the nitty and gritty of photography. It's basically about, and that's mostly what I am about, is about the connection. I feel like if you have that connection with somebody that you're photographing, you are going to get a good photo, um, because it just flows. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like if you are sitting down with somebody and you know you put them close enough to you that you guys are having a conversation and you're shooting, which is usually how I approach. I'm having a conversation while I'm shooting and we're laughing and we're like, so I'm getting all their, I'm getting them to not only just to open up but giving me all the best angles, because they're so relaxed. And I guarantee there's, you're gonna get some good shots out of that.
Now,
So
along those,
forget all the details, just focus on the communication and, you know, the connection.
well, yeah, yeah, that's everything. Otherwise, you get that stiff smile and that awkward
Right.
look. So,
Yes.
are you a fan of cell phone photography?
Long story short, like if I want to make a very small of a response here, I want to say yes, but there's the buts. Um, but yes, like last time I went to Brazil, I decided I wasn't going to bring my equipment because, you know, I always tend to want to do all these photos and I have all these ideas and all these things that I want to do. And I'm like, listen, I always come here. This time I just want to enjoy my family, and I'll be thinking about, you know, worrying about my bringing my equipment and get somebody steal it because, yeah, third world country, it happens. So I don't want to have that in the back of my mind. So I just bring my phone and I try to upgrade it every 2 years because I figured that's a long enough time for they bring something new. Um, and I just take a lot of phone photography. I think it works really well. I think they did an amazing job specifically with the iPhone. I don't know anything about other phones. Um, I haven't tried anything else other than the iPhone, but I think it does an amazing job. And if you know how to use the lenses on the Pro really well, it's, I mean, it's, that's all you need.
So let's I guess progress from you're out shooting and now it's time to edit.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think obviously there's a perfect ratio to this, but for every hour you're shooting, how long do you think you spend editing from that session?
Oh gosh, I don't think I've ever thought of that way. Let's see. I want to say on a full session with, you know, because I shoot a lot,
Mhm.
I want to say I do about between 6 to 8 looks, and I shoot fast, so we get a lot. I want to say I shoot on a full session like the 6 to 8 looks about 2,000 images.
Okay.
Um, Oh gosh. From there, I don't know. I don't know how to how would you say, like, if you were to say, so it's just so I can get a base.
Okay, so I'll give you an example.
Perfect.
On a couple different regards. So if I am in Africa and I spend a day and I'm shooting and I shoot 3,500 photos in an image or in a day in Africa, I get back to my tent, my cabin, etc. I'll cull those 3,500 images down to about 350. So I get rid of about 90% of them. And then I
Mhm.
start working on those. If I shoot a Major League Baseball game and it's 3 hours, I might spend an hour editing, hour and a half editing for those 3 hours shooting, but that's for editorial. I've had photographers tell me that they spend as much time editing as they do at the actual shoot. And of course, it varies. It varies by everybody. Now, are you shooting exclusively in RAW or are you shooting RAW and
Raw.
JPEG? Okay, yeah, yeah,
I do raw, and then I do a small JPEG just so it's easier
yeah,
to go through.
yeah.
Um,
Little
I
preview.
want to
Yeah.
say, yes, I want to say I keep, oh God, I keep about 50% of
Mm-hmm.
the images. I kind of, when culling comes, and like it's just very hard to decide on the images because, it's almost like you have this personal attachment to each shot that you've taken. So it's like going through them and deciding from there is really hard. Yeah, so then from there, I want to edit. I'd say I want to edit maybe 50 maybe,
Yeah.
but it just depends on what kind of shoot it is. Like, from time to time I do senior stuff, especially because my kids have so many friends that were about the same age, so word of mouth. And I like to stay local too. Sometimes if I don't have to go to LA, it's fantastic. So I get a lot of work, photographing seniors as well, like on the
Mm-hmm.
down low. I don't advertise that much, but I love doing those because it's just so much easier than having to deal with hair, makeup, and stylists, and rep on set, and all those extra things that kind of like almost um, it's not that one-on-one interaction that I like
Mm-hmm.
to have.
Sure.
It's just a lot going on. So when I get that one-on-one, it's great. So anyways, for a session like that, I usually I'll shoot, do my regular shooting, but I will only show them about maybe 50 images, and they usually buy them all. It's very rare that I get a session like that they don't want them all. And then for actor shoots, depending on what it is, but what I do a lot of them is, they just need updated imagery and they come directly to me. So we go for a shoot and then we do a whole lot of images, and then I'll go through them, separate my favorites. Maybe it's usually like, 50% of them or 60% of them or something. And because I really want to make them like the best ever. And send them. I just put my watermark in them and then send it to them in the wrap, and then they make their decision, and then I'll just edit whatever they decide.
Yeah. No,
Then they
that
will
makes
be
sense.
purchasing those. Yeah, it
And
makes
when
it
you're shoot
easier.
when you're shooting for editorial or some other times, do you ever shoot tethered to a computer or not really much?
Never, not
Yeah.
anymore, not anymore. I learned my lesson because I feel like it just slows down the process so much unless
Hmm.
they like 100% require that that's what they need.
Okay.
There's just so many opinions going on. There's always, oh, we got to stop. There's this. Oh, there's this hair that's not in place. Oh, there's this. And I'm like, let the thing flow because otherwise we're never going to get, I just like that person moving. I like that person. And not everything needs to be absolutely 100% perfect because the essence of the image, we're going to lose it, you know?
Yeah.
So I like to let things flow. And, so when I do it that way, sometimes what I do is like, I'll shoot a bunch of them and then I'll kind of show it in the back of my camera really fast. I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm getting. And then, very quickly they make any changes that they need made, and then let's go. And then we continue on. It just makes the process much faster. And, we get a lot more work done that way.
And I would imagine that when you're working with a model and you're trying to get a certain look, a certain concept, when you can show
Mm-hmm.
them the back of the camera and say, this is kind of what I'm going for. Can we do something a little different? When they see it
Mm-hmm.
visually, then they get it immediately and then they can put it
Mm-hmm.
into motion right away.
Totally. Yes. And I always have a mood board with me.
Okay.
I go through before a shoot, I pick my favorite images out of, like Google or Pinterest or something. And I put them
Hmm.
on a mood board and I'm like, okay, this is kind of what I have in mind, pose wise or lighting wise, or, just for them to kind of have an idea what it is that I'm doing. And once they get that, I'm like, okay, let's go shoot. I just recently did a shoot because I'm trying to update my portfolio a little bit on the model side. And it was just me. And I directed, I produced, I did hair, I did makeup, well, she did most of the makeup. I adjusted it. I did styling. I switched things on set. Like I got this room at a hotel in Palm Springs, and we did like a whole Palm Springs kind of vibe look. I pulled clothes out of showroom, and it was beautiful. And all I did was like, I worked directly with the model. My sister was there doing the behind the scenes. I just posted that on my YouTube as well. And, I just kind of showed her the idea that I had, the whole vibe for the photo shoot on the mood board. And we picked the clothes, put them on, and we'll switch and switch and switch. And it was like from like, her resting by the pool side and stuff. And then by the end, she's inside the pool. It was so nice. And I love doing stuff like that. It's like, it's a lot of work. By the time I'm done, like the next day, I literally can't walk. Everything hurts, I'm, as you get older, you just notice your body like, okay, I can't do this stuff anymore. But the images are so beautiful. And it was
I've
such an
seen.
amazing, oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's, I loved it. I loved it. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen on the videos where you're laying down and I mean, it's physical. You're getting the
Yes.
angles you want. Yeah,
Everything for that angle, right?
that's what it's about. So if somebody
Yes.
says, Amanda, put on your soundtrack of music, and you say, well, what do you like? And they say, whatever you want. What is your music soundtrack for a shoot that you would put on if it was totally up to you?
Brazilian music, for sure.
Yeah,
Because it just has that you can't help but be happy.
yeah.
There's a what we call ashe. It's like there's this beat, and it's like it's just so happy. I love it. And everybody who hears is like, oh, I really like this. Like, yeah, I love it. It just makes me happy, kind of inspires me. I don't know what it is. It's just there's this thing, I just feel it in my heart.
Well, it's probably like a little piece of home for you. It's a
Yes,
little it's
100%.
so it's that, it's like you said, it's the rhythms, it's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
spirit of the music. And
Mm-hmm.
I think whether it's Brazilian music or it's music from Cuba and other places, it really has a personality unto itself.
Yes.
So I know that people are definitely going to want to dig deeper and follow you and your work and see the videos and all this. So where can people check out your work on social media and kind of follow along with everything that you're doing?
Oh, that's very cool. I'm on Instagram at Amanda Peixoto Elkins, and Peixoto is spelled Peixoto, and it's all together, Amanda Peixoto Elkins. My website is www.amandaelkins.com. And I have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to grow. It's very hard as well. And I think it's Amanda P. Elkins, but there's a link on my Instagram. There's a link for all my stuff. So check that out.
Well, and I can tell you that it is beyond worth it. So, Amanda's work is beautiful. In general, you'll see her doing the photo shoot in Greece with her daughter and all the other terrific models that she works with. So, Amanda, I want to thank you so sincerely for your generosity of time and being my guest. It's been just really, really great to meet you and have a chance to talk with you.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. Sometimes, the Portuguese and the English kind of, my English is not my first language, so sometimes thoughts get kind of messed up in there. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to hear some of you also speak. And I've been really enjoying listening to some of the podcasts that you have had before. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, Well, thank you. And just want to let everybody listening know that you can check out what I have going on. You can go to Instagram at Mitch Stringer Images. You can go online to mitchstringerimages.com. I'd say probably Instagram is the best way to get the latest of what I have going on. And you can always feel free to drop me a DM, email me if you've got questions. I know I've been getting a lot of questions early on this year about people who are looking to travel in 2025 and beyond, and where they want to go and what kind of gear to bring and all that. So I'm always happy to hear from listeners, and be sure along those lines to hopefully like and subscribe to the show. Helps us get the word out and exposes more people to terrific guests like Amanda. Until next episode, I wish you great light, I wish you great shooting, and I look forward to talking again soon.